Zara pressed her blue hands against the cold metal bars of her prison cell. The humans had captured her 3 months ago during their raid on her home planet of Vega Prime. Her people, the Viridians, had been fighting these strange creatures for over 2 years now, and she had every reason to hate them. The humans were monsters in her eyes. They destroyed everything they touched. They burned forests, turned rivers black with their machines, and killed anyone who stood in their way. Zara had seen her own family die when their ships came from the sky like metal locusts. Her younger brother had been only 12 years old. Every day the human guards would bring her food that tasted like nothing. She would spit at them and curse them in her native language. They would just laugh and walk away. Their cruel faces haunted her dreams at night. She counted the days until she could escape and get her revenge, but then everything changed when a new guard started working at the prison. Her name was Amy Brown, and she was different from the others. Amy had soft brown hair and kind green eyes that seemed to hold sadness instead of hatred. When she brought food, she would say simple words like hello and thank you at first. Zara thought, this was another trick. The humans were clever and cruel, so maybe Amy was pretending to be nice to get information. But weeks passed and Amy kept being gentle. She never laughed when Zara refused to eat. She never hit the bars when Zara threw things at her. She just waited patiently and spoke in a quiet voice. One day Amy brought something different along with the usual gray food paste. She had a small device that showed moving pictures. Zara had never seen anything like it before. Amy pressed some buttons and suddenly Zara could see images of Earth. The pictures showed green fields full of flowers, blue oceans with waves that sparkled in sunlight, mountains covered with snow that looked like white blankets, children playing in parks while their parents watched and smiled. Amy explained that this was her home planet and these were her people. Zara felt confused as she watched the images. These humans looked happy and peaceful. They were not the monsters she had imagined. The children reminded her of her little brother before the war started. She saw families eating together, laughing together, living together in harmony. Amy noticed Zara's interest and started bringing more pictures every day. She showed Zara human art and music, human cities with beautiful buildings that reached toward the sky, human farms where people grew food to feed everyone. She told Zara about human holidays where families came together to celebrate. Through broken words and simple drawings, Amy began to tell Zara her own story. She had grown up on a small farm with her parents and 3 sisters. She loved animals and wanted to become a doctor to help sick people. But then the war started, and she was forced to become a soldier. Amy explained that she did not want to fight. She cried at night thinking about all the people who had died on both sides. She said the war was started by leaders who were afraid of each other, while regular people just wanted to live in peace. Amy had volunteered to work at the prison because she hoped to find a way to stop the fighting. Zara began to understand that Amy was as trapped as she was. They were both victims of a war they never wanted. Both had lost people they loved. Both dreamed of a time when their worlds could know peace again. For the first time since her capture, Zara felt something other than anger and hatred one night. Amy came to Zara's cell looking very upset. She sat down outside the bars and began to cry. Zara had never seen a human cry before. She thought they were incapable of such emotions. But here was Amy, sobbing like a child who had lost her mother, through her tears. Amy explained that the military leaders were planning to execute all the alien prisoners, including Zara. They said it would send a message to the Viridians that humans would not tolerate any more attacks. Amy had tried to argue with her commanders, but they would not listen. Zara felt a strange sensation in her chest. It took her a moment to realize what it was. Hope. Amy was trying to save her life, even though they were supposed to be enemies. Even though Zara had spent months hating her and all humans, Amy still cared enough to risk her own safety. That night, Amy brought Zara civilian clothes and a map of the prison. She had spent weeks studying the guard rotations and security systems. She knew exactly when and how Zara could escape. Amy said there was a transport ship leaving for neutral space in 2 days. If Zara could reach it, she would be free. Zara looked at this human woman who had shown her more kindness than she had known in years. Amy was willing to commit treason against her own species to save someone she barely knew. She was risking her career, her freedom, and possibly her life for an alien she had met only months ago. For the first time, Zara spoke to Amy in broken human language. She said thank you and sorry. Amy smiled through her tears and said that friendship was more important than war. She said that maybe, someday their people could learn to live together instead of fighting each other. The escape plan worked perfectly. Amy had timed everything down to the minute Zara slipped out of her cell when the guards changed shifts. She crept through the corridors, wearing Amy's spare uniform. The transport ship was waiting at the docking bay just as Amy had promised as Zara boarded the ship. She looked back toward the prison. She thought about Amy, who would face punishment for helping her escape, Amy, who had shown her that humans were not monsters but people just like Viridians, people who could love and cry and hope for better days. The ship lifted off and headed toward the stars. Zara watched through the window as the human military base grew smaller. Below her she was free, but she carried with her a new understanding. The war between their species was not about good versus evil. It was about fear and misunderstanding between two groups who had more in common than they knew. Years later, when Zara had become a leader among her own people, she would tell the story of Amy Brown, the human guard who risked everything for peace. She would explain that not all humans were enemies, and that maybe their species could find a way to coexist. Amy had given Zara more than freedom. She had given her hope. Hope that someday the children of both species could play together in parks under alien suns. Hope that Viridians and humans could share their knowledge and build a better future together. Hope that love could triumph over hate. Zara never saw Amy again, but she never forgot the lesson she had learned in that prison cell. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is showing kindness to someone who is supposed to be your enemy. Sometimes hope comes from the most unexpected places. And sometimes one person's compassion can change the course of history itself. The war between humans and Viridians would continue for several more years, but eventually leaders on both sides would remember stories like Zara and Amy, stories of individuals who chose friendship over fear, understanding over hatred, peace over war. And when the peace treaties were finally signed, Zara's voice would be among those calling for forgiveness and unity. Amy Brown had been just one human guard in one military prison, but her simple acts of kindness had planted seeds that would grow into a forest of hope. Seeds that would eventually bear the fruit of lasting peace between two species who had once thought they could never be anything but enemies.